Hello, Donna.
Is that Mark?
It is. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And Tanya, I don't know if you can see it.
Can you see us?
No, I can't see y'all.
Really?
Yeah, computer.
I can hear y'all, but I can't see you.
We can
You
see
can
you.
see it right there, Mark.
Oh, okay. Not sure. Share screen, record it. Oh, stop video.
Hi in Iceland. How are we?
Hey,
We're good. How are you?
Good, thanks. It's very late for you. I'm sorry.
no problem.
It's okay. We are kind of coming out of summer vacation, so it's not that bad.
I saw that. It looks like y'all had fun.
Oh yeah, we traveled
Yeah.
a bit. Not as much as we did last year when we went to Europe, but
Yeah. It looked nice though. It looked good. I saw some of Isa's posts and there were some really pretty posts that she put up. So
yeah,
yeah, that's good.
it was good.
I'm trying to see. Chantel, I can. Oh, there you go. I can see you now.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You doing okay?
I am.
Good. Good. I'm trying to see who else is on here. Pam, can you hear me? I think. What have I got in here?
Hey, Donna.
Miss Teresa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I'm glad you could come on. You might be working, so I'm glad you could make it. I'm trying to
Hi,
see
Donna.
who's. Oh, you're. So, oh gosh, you're in outer space.
I just said to Gareth, how to change the background on this?
Hi, Coach Donna.
Where's it? Stephanie?
Coach.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
Can't see you, but I can hear you, so that's good. Okay, who else have I got on here? Let me just get everybody on. Hey, Roseanne. Can you hear me, Roseanne? Nope. Tanya, is that? I see Tanya's phone now. Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you now. Yeah. Got you. I'm trying to see who. There's a couple that don't have names on, so hopefully everybody's in. Let me see. I know there was a couple of people that said they couldn't make the call today because with time difference and then obviously being at work. So I am recording this as well, and I'll send it on afterwards in case there's anything that Richie or Hannah or myself go over that you need to kind of listen to again. So I'll send this out to everybody once we finish. But I do want to get going because I know it's late for some of you. So I don't want to keep everybody up till 3 a.m. over there in Europe. But I did want to introduce Richie and Hannah. I know some of you know Hannah already, who works with our team. But Richie, we asked him to come on the call really to talk about the preparations that the athletic department have put in and things that are being put in place with regards to COVID. So if it's okay, Richie, I'll hand over to you first, and then maybe Hannah can speak after you on something specific to our team.
Sure. Thanks, Coach. Like Coach Finney said, my name is Richie Valdez. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Medicine Performance here. I just kind of want to touch base a little bit on our COVID protocols and procedures and see if there's any sort of questions or anything that I might answer, just to kind of give you guys a little update on where we're at. So we've been working through a graduated return to what the NCAA is calling resocialization this summer with the student athletes on campus. And so we've gotten to a point we're in a phase where we can proceed, starting with fall sport camp starting up this week, and then once we get to school, we'll be back into hopefully a little bit more normal practice schedule and workout schedule and things like that. But to kind of give you the bird's eye overview of what we're doing, we're limiting the weight room to have only 2 people per workout station, so that way we can maintain some social distancing there. We're masking in the weight room. It sounds terrible, but you get used to it real quick. That way that we can maintain some personal protective equipment between the student athletes and the coaches and everybody as well. We have individual towels for everyone during the weight room, so that there's no sharing of towels. If everybody could mute, that'd be great. Cut back on some of that feedback. But we have we're going to have individual towels for each individual working out, so there's no sharing of towels. Well, each weight station will have a cleaning towel and spray bottle with it, so the student athlete can clean the stuff they know they've touched immediately after they're done working out. And then we're spacing 15 minutes between each one of our weight groups, so that we can make sure everything's wiped down and clean. We have ingress and egress separate stations, so it's one way through the weight room. There's one way to enter, and then you have to exit out the back way. Before they get to the facility, every student athlete is screened when they come in. So we have a new athletic training medical record, electronic medical record called ATS. Most of y'all hopefully are already logged in and set up for that. But we're doing our COVID symptom screening daily through ATS. So every morning in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, about 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll get an email. So when you wake up, it's going to remind you to log in to ATS to do your symptom profile. It's 40 questions, but they're just simple yes or no questions to ask you your symptoms, fever, shortness of breath, cough, anything like that. You answer those questions honestly, and then you're done with that. And then when you come to check in for weights or to the training room or for practice, you'll meet with Hannah or another athletic training staff member who will meet you at the entrance. We'll temperature screen you with one of the non-contact infrared thermometers. And then if you're good to go, you're cleared for the day. If you have anything on that screening that is suspect, so you've got fatigue or you've got a headache or something like that, me and Hannah immediately get an email saying there's something for review on so-and-so's COVID screen. Then we log in, we see what that is, and then we will call you. We're doing everything kind of over the phone right now. So we will, generally speaking, when someone's sick in college athletics, we say, hey, come into the training room, let us check you out. We'll give you the medicine and send you home. But we're doing everything kind of telemed right now. So we'll talk to the student athlete that's having symptoms. We'll say, okay, this seems suspicious for COVID. Let's stay in your room and let's call doc. And so then we'll set up a telemed visit. Suspicious for COVID, then we will set up testing in that day in town. Houston, as you may have seen, has had a rough patch the past month or so. We're getting better. Our daily rates are declining and getting a little bit back to kind of our pre-4th of July days. But the urgent care and the ERs are still pretty slow in the testing. Some of them are taking 3 weeks. So we found an urgent care about 15 minutes away from the university that's doing the rapid testing. And that's giving us results in 2 to 4 hours. That's the rapid antigen testing, which is extremely reliable. It does have, it's got great positive results. So if you're positive, you're positive. It's got some false negative results when you have symptoms. So if you're asymptomatic and you don't have symptoms and you go and you get tested, you get a negative, you're negative. You get a positive, you're positive. If you're symptomatic, so you've got fever, you've got shortness of breath or loss of taste, and you go get that test and it comes back negative, the standard of care with the CDC here in the States is to still swab you with the PCR test and send that off. So we would still probably quarantine you while we're waiting for that confirmation. If that comes back negative, then you're negative and you just had sinuses or something else or another viral infection. If that comes back positive, then you would be treated as positive. if you're treated as positive or you are positive, or once we get into school, we're going to be doing testing regularly on you guys. The NCAA policy is when you're in your preseason and your workouts and your voluntary stuff before it's basketball season, we will do what we call surveillance testing of 25 to 50% of the student athletes every other week. So we will try not to pick on the same people all the time, but we'll test you once a week, every other week, get those results back, and that's what we're going to be doing our surveillance testing. Once we get into preseason, when it's officially basketball season, it'll be everybody on the team every single week. And when we get to competition, it's once a week, 72 hours before the first competition of the week. It's a whole lot of math. I've got a calendar. We'll put it on the dates, and we'll tell you when to show up. We've got that stuff set up. The NCAA came out with some stuff yesterday that was a bit of a more of a hard line than they've taken this entire time, and made some mandates. Fortunately, we are in a pretty good position being in Houston. It's got the world's largest medical center. We've got a second skyline of like 49 hospitals downtown. So we've got a lot more resources than some of the schools in our conference, certainly. And so we've got a lot of opportunities to find test people that have the capability to test on site for us with a reasonable price that we can afford, and then also get us the results we need in a quick turnaround to be able to play. And so we've got that plan set up for moving forward for basketball season. But if you come here and you test positive on the surveillance testing, or you have some symptoms and it comes up on your screen, you contact Hannah and you see Doc and we send you to go get tested. The way that works is we start a quarantine, a mandatory minimum 10-day quarantine. That comes from either your onset of symptoms or your positive test date. So if you were to say get sick on Tuesday and you felt bad, but you didn't say anything about it to Hannah till the next day, then we got you tested and we found out on Thursday that your results came back positive, we would start your quarantine clock on Tuesday, the onset of your symptoms. If you get into your surveillance testing and we test every Wednesday and those results come back on Friday and you're asymptomatic, but you're still test positive, that quarantine will start on Wednesday. So that's 10 days for the people that have that are positive. 10 days with at least 24 hours of no fever, so no Tylenol or anything, no fever with any sort of medications, and improving symptoms. So that's the latest recommendation the CDC came out with, I think July 17th. And so basically we've seen it's about 6 days or so for that virus, even for asymptomatic people, for that virus to get to a point where it peaks in its contagiousness, and then it starts decreasing. And so that's why they put that 10-day window on there. And then having our symptoms improve, they don't necessarily have to be 100% away as long as there's no fever. We've seen that people that have loss of taste and smell, sometimes that can last up for 3 weeks to 3 months. So we're not trying to isolate people that are perfectly healthy for 3 months because they have those two symptoms, because we've seen, the CDC's done the studies that it's not contagious, that one symptom isn't going to make it contagious. So what we do at that standpoint, if you were to test positive, whether from symptomatic or the surveillance screening, is you will be quarantined. The people in your apartment or in your dorm room, when you get here, the university, the Houston community is treating dorm rooms as family units. So it's like being in a house. So if someone were to test positive in that house, everybody in that house is considered close critical contact. So 5 days from that last close contact would be a quarantine for those individuals as well. And so basically what that means is when we get a positive, we're going to have all 4 of them or all 2 of them quarantine in their room, but then we'll separate them in their room, stay in your own rooms and things like that, mask and stop interacting. You quarantine for 5 days because it takes about 5 days for that virus from the last contact to grow and replicate enough to get to a point that it's going to be positive on a test. So if we tested you right away and you got exposed to the virus, it might come back negative and give us a false sense of security, and then 5 days later you get sick. So it takes about 5 days for that to happen. It's like putting food coloring in a glass of water. It takes a while for the whole glass of water to change color. It's the same thing with the virus. So at 5 days, symptoms or no symptoms, we're going to take the roommates and we're going to test them. If they come back negative, then they're released. from quarantine. If they come back positive, then they'll have another 5 days because they've already been in quarantine for 5 days. So they'll have quarantine for 10 days total. Symptoms or not. If the symptoms come on, then we'll turn it into a 10-day quarantine from the onset of symptoms. That's a lot of information. And I know some of this is coming from a Southern guy that's a fast speaker and mumbles sometimes from what my to repeat or I can answer any questions, but I just got off another one of these right before this call. I had one of these with another team yesterday. Like I said to those teams, we're working with the best information that we have right now. What our plan is now is completely different than what we had in May and even what we had in June. But we've got a plan in place now that after what came out with the NCAA yesterday and the call that we had with conference athletic directors and medical directors, we're in a really good spot to be able to provide the confidence that our student athletes and the families of our student athletes need to be able to hopefully move forward with feeling comfortable to get here and to play ball and do the things we're asking you all to do and that you guys want to do. That doesn't mean things won't change, but we've got a great medical staff in the community that helps us out, that we have leaned on tremendously, that are on the front lines of this and are helping us interpret this information. But we're hoping that we continue to get better information to help us tweak that plan to a point where when the girls get here and we're ready to play ball, we can play ball with some confidence. And then if someone does get sick, we've got a great plan in place to take care of them, make sure things are good, and they're getting what they need as far as that healthcare goes. Does anyone have any questions for me right now?
I do. This is Stephanie. So that was quite a bit of information to try and dissect. So my question is, will we be able to get this in writing?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we have several iterations of our COVID protocol. We're working on getting some clarity from what the NCAA said yesterday, getting some answers to those questions. But then once that happens, we'll update our protocol with that clarification, and then that's been public, and then I'll send that on to Coach, and she can push that out to you guys as well. But yes, that's all. This will be in writing.
And as there are, iterations that take place as the plans change, how will that be communicated to the parents? Is that going to be on a website, or are we looking to get some type of communication from Coach Donna during each iteration?
Yeah, I think anytime we update our protocol, the easiest way for us to do that is to send it out to our coaches, and they disseminate it out to their team and to the family members of that team. And so I think that might be the easiest way, whether we have that through directly sending you guys the document, or we have a link to where the document's posted online, or whatever that might be. That will be disseminated through our coaching staff to our players and families.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Richie, I had a question from one of the parents that can't be on the call today. She was asking if her daughter was to get sick and require hospitalization, and she's an international parent, would that be covered by the school if she needed treatment?
Yes, let me read exactly what that looks like. Yeah, so part of what the NCAA came out yesterday with and for student health and well-being, which that's what I do is student health and well-being, so I firmly endorse it, is to make sure that there's no out-of-pocket expenses for student athletes that get sick on COVID. And so that's what we were doing today, is double checking our policies and everything. So the international student policy that we have, which is GO Blue, it's all-inclusive policy that covers general medical as well as athletics. So if you get hurt playing basketball, we've got a secondary insurance policy that covers that, but also our primary insurance policy helps with that as well. But it's a sickness policy too. So we've got solid coverage on that will cover COVID testing, treatment, and hospitalization and everything. So that's we've got couple $100,000 of coverage on those things, and then anything out of that is what the university will be covering as well. So fortunately what we've seen at the young population of student college athletes is mostly a cough and a little bit of a fatigue for a couple days, and they kick it and they look great. Sometimes we don't, and so we're preparing for that. And that's what our jobs are in the medical profession, is to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But we do have the plans in place that should someone get sick while they're over here, domestic or international, they'll be taken care of. And those expenses will not be going to the families and will be taken care of by primary insurance or the university.
So to piggyback off of that, you know, I understand that there can be some long-term things that also take place with COVID, and are there plans in place to care for that? I mean, we don't necessarily know, you know, can't pinpoint them. We don't have a smoking gun today because we haven't had anybody go through that, but I do understand there are also things that, you know, folks who are getting this are experiencing on a long-term basis. What's the plan to care for those athletes?
Yeah, we haven't. That is not something that's been finalized yet, because we haven't seen kind of any sort of data on that. So we currently are operating just like we would with any sort of other medical condition that our student athletes have, is giving them best care that we can when they're here and throughout the duration of their term, and making sure that they have that care that they need moving forward. Currently speaking, our policy covers for up to 2 years after graduation. So there's that 6-year benefit. And so we have seen some discussions of the NCAA having long-term insurance policies and things like that. But nothing has been finalized or made definite to where we could speak to that with authority.
Hi, my name is Teresa. So my question is, I heard you talk about when somebody tests positive in the dorm, you quarantine every occupant in that area. How about supposing they played game today and someone tests positive the next day? What happens to the rest of the team? How do you handle that?
If someone tests positive today, and with the team after practice, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Right. So yeah, if we so there's protocols and policies that we've been recommending and discussing, and it's a sport by sport basis. And what we're looking at is in regards to how to mitigate that risk. So if we were to practice like it was 2019 and somebody tested positive, we would quarantine the whole team. We've seen several programs do that over the summer from workouts because they just worked out normally, and once they contact traced it, everybody got quarantined for 2 weeks. We're trying to avoid that. Some of those mitigating circumstances are practicing in pods, is what the NCAA calls it. So setting up your depth chart to make sure that you don't have everybody going against one another, practicing kind of based on rooming situations. Masking in practice, masking in the weight room. The university policy when the students get here is they're going to be masked every time they're on campus, in the classroom, everywhere they go. Once they leave their room, they're going to be masked. That's the biggest thing that we've seen. And so if we can mitigate the risk and the exposure of contact through masking and through distancing, then we only have to test and quarantine the people that have been in that close critical contact. That's defined by the CDC and the NCAA as within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes without a mask. So it's basically people you're living with, because we've set up our classrooms, because we've set up our meetings, and because the dining halls and things like that are set up to maintain that distance so that we don't have that close interactive contact. Basically, it's going to be those family units, those people that are living in the same dorm or living in the same apartment that are sharing that air over long periods of time. And so that's what, once we get into practices and those types of things, how we set up our practice will determine who tests positive. So if we have all of our guards practicing together and a guard test positive, then we would probably have to quarantine all the guards if we weren't masked or if they weren't maintaining distance.
Yeah, I was going to touch on this, so it's probably a good time to bring this up. But for the first, at least the first 3 weeks that school goes back, we will be practicing in smaller groups, which is normal for us anyway. We typically do that when we come back and we do skill workouts, individual stuff. And the groups that we'll work out in the first few weeks will be their living groups. So the people they're living with will be in their workout group. And that will hopefully the first few weeks allow us, obviously, if someone does test positive, to kind of circumnavigate that and make sure that the other kids can still practice. And obviously that particular apartment or room may be the ones that have to shut down. But for the first few weeks, at least, we're going to be in those groups where they're working out with people they live with, to see how things go with obviously school coming back, etc. And you know, obviously this is going to be very different for them initially, but that is typical for us, that we will do that small group workout. So it won't be a big change for the girls that are returners in that respect, other than they're going to be, rather than working in positional groups, they're going to be working with people they live with, you know, until we kind of settle in and see how things go.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's good. And thank you for this meeting.
Any other questions for Richie?
Yeah, just hi Richie. I'm Grimur calling from Iceland.
Hi.
Nice seeing you all, and thank you for this information. They have been most helpful. I would like to follow up a little on that question Teresa was asking. It's like if the team, like in the beginning, it's the smaller groups. I get that, and if like let's say one of the girls test positive and that group, so it's a small quarantine group. But when the team comes together, I'm just thinking, so like if the team is together and practicing, and it's closer to game, closer to season or whatever, and someone tests positive, what will happen then? Is it gonna be like, because it's the conference, I'm thinking like, would it be the whole team is quarantined and the games are postponed, or what? Is there anything that the NCAA has like given out on that?
And one more thing there. I mean, when they're on quarantine, what about the school? What about going to get their food and etc. When they are quarantined? Where are they doing that and how? Because
right.
I think we already have this situation, don't you, in the boys' team?
Right. So I'll answer that backwards because it's a little bit easier that way. Yeah. So they will be quarantining in their room in place. The coaching staff is responsible for making sure they have food for that duration of the time. Whether that's we set up something so they can grab it, we can get grab and go from the dining hall, or we get them groceries and things like that. As far as school goes, the way the university's set up for the fall anyway is an online in-person hybrid method. So the Monday, Wednesday classes or the Tuesday, Thursday classes, half the class will be in on Monday and the other half will be doing it online and vice versa. And so if someone has to quarantine, they'll just go exclusively online for that time. And so that'll be excused absences, but they'll still be doing the work because it's going to be online anyway. As far as the competition goes, the NCAA hasn't come out as far as rescheduling and things like that. Basically what we've looked at with soccer, volleyball, football, things that are starting now, and looking at once basketball kind of gets going, is at least for the fall, the expectation that games will get canceled. I think that's why we've seen some of the bigger schools cancel all of their non-conference stuff so that they have a little bit more wiggle room of rescheduling, but under the understanding that teams are probably going to have some positives to a point where they are going to have to quarantine and cancel a game. Right now, what we're trying to do and what the NCAA put out in their mitigating risks is if we can mask exclusively through competition, So meaning practice with a mask, practice with and lift with a mask, those types of things. That allows us to not have to quarantine anybody besides the people they're not masked around. So that would be themselves and their roommates. And so we've lifted, we've had the teams that have been here, football, soccer, volleyball, men's basketball, lifting with masks this past week. They got used to it quick. They complained a little bit, but they got used to it quick. What we're doing now too, and what we'll be doing with the girls when they get here, to put it frankly, is going to be very vanilla training in the weight room, because they've been off for it's going to be almost 7 months by the time they get here from organized activity. So we're not going to just throw them into a Division I weightlifting program and expect them to pick back up. We're going to be very smart in our progression of getting there. So there's not going to be tons of high intensity stuff right away. So to let them ease into getting used to the mask, their bodies ease into squatting and running and doing a team thing, things like that as well. But as far as once we get into team practice, if we're like I said before, if we're practicing like normal, like in the past, 5-on-5, the whole team, no mingling, no masking, the whole team would be quarantined. And so that's why we're figuring out from a medical and coaching staff what's the best way that we can, especially when we get into the season, make sure that we have, 6 or 7 girls to take to a game if everybody else had to get quarantined. And so that's what we're talking about with those pod practices and breaking it up, where we may not have normal practices for a while. And so that's what we've kind of told our fall sports. This 2020 is not going to be a normal year. We're hoping 2021 will be a normal year, but right now it's doing what we have to do to play football and soccer and basketball, is to do these things with washing our hands and sanitizing our hands constantly and becoming germaphobes and wearing masks all the time. So, but as far as the competitions go, a lot of teams are building a little bit more wiggle room into their schedule, so they have a chance to reschedule. But once we get into the meat of conference schedules, it would probably be the game would get canceled and would consider possibly a no contest. So it wouldn't count for or against either team. But that's above my head.
I can tell you, Greemer, that so far we've only had one team cancel on us in terms of our scheduling. And that's because their school has actually decided that they're not going to participate in non-conference play, like Richie said. So everybody else on our schedule has informed us that right now they intend to play. Obviously that may change, dependent on what happens over the next couple of months. But at the moment, we've only had that one team off of our schedule. So what that means is we were already kind of down a few games because we hadn't scheduled fully because of this for our non-conference. But right now, if everybody else plays, we'll still have 8 non-conference games before we go into conference play. Now, conference have reduced the number of games that we'll play this year. And so we're down to 16 games instead of 20 in the conference. So we will still be playing 24 games. Now, I did just get asked about adding a game in Texas. And obviously, in talking with our AD, he's keen to limit our travel if we're adding games, etc. So there is a chance we may add TCU to our schedule. But, other than that, we won't be adding any out-of-state travel where we can avoid it. So at the moment, we've only lost one game. But again, like Richie said, things can change so rapidly. So that's where we're at right now today.
I have another question about what kind of mask would they be wearing? And also, how is your sanitation concerning the bus? And then even when you have someone that's positive in any particular dorm?
Right. So the masks, we have the surgical disposable masks for in the training room for emergencies if somebody doesn't have a mask. We have cloth masks that have been provided as well. The sleeve gaiter things that can go around the neck and be pulled up easily are also good alternatives. Basically, any sort of face covering is going to be better than none. And so we're not recommending or requiring the N95s or any of those hospital grade masks or anything like that. And so the sanitation, yeah, so we have the sanitation in place right now for the weight room, and the training room is at the end of, like I said before, at the end of every lift. Each student athlete wipes down everything they touch, wipe down the whole station. And we have 15 minutes between groups. With the training room, when someone comes in, we wipe down the table and everything they touch and stuff. We're social distancing in the training room, so we're not using every table next to each other. But at the end of the day, we have a fogging machine that we take into the weight room and we take into the training room. And it's based on square footage. We put it in there, and it makes this big mist cloud of industrial strength antiseptic viricide, and it takes about 4 hours. Makes this cloud that waits in there for about 4 hours. So we empty the room and evacuate at the end of the night, and gets on every crook and cranny of everything. And so when if we have positives in the dorms, the university's got the ability to send in the custodial staff to go in and do a deep clean there. But we've also kind of had that fogger available to go into those apartments for our student athletes as well, and fog and let them have a little bit of sense of peace that it's been sanitized as well as their locker rooms in the training room and the weight rooms and stuff are. So once we'll do the same thing for those locker rooms once those locker rooms get opened back up for use.
Yes, is someone going to be making sure that the weight rooms are that the students clean up or sanitize after themselves? Because
Yes.
another thing is putting a process in policy into place and making sure it's monitored. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so the strength staff and the medical staff, the athletic training staff, that's part of our policies and protocols, and we've built that into their lift time. So that if they have an hour and 15-minute lift group, we're usually only lifting for about an hour and we're cleaning for 15 minutes, and then having that 15-minute window for the other team to come in and them to get out, so there's not cross-contamination there, as well as to make sure that anything else that might have gotten missed is getting cleaned as well.
Good.
Are you able to speak to what the protocols will be in the classroom for the girls?
Sure. The best I can. Like I said, we're doing 50% capacity in the classroom so that we can distance out. They've completely dropped the Friday class. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes are just going to be meeting Monday, Wednesday. Tuesday, Thursday classes are just going to be meeting Tuesday, Thursday. And they will be masked in the classroom. They'll be distanced in the classroom. And that's why we went down to that 50%. And so the lecture will be made in person and then posted on Blackboard afterwards. So the 50% that aren't there for that day will have access to the lecture afterwards, and vice versa. The first 3 rows of the classroom will be left empty so that the professor doesn't have to be masked, so that that's a accessibility and disability thing. It's covering masks for people that are hard of hearing and things like that. So there'll be 10 to 12 feet between the professor and the rest of the students so that they can do their lecture and be seen and visible as well. And then the university custodial staff is going to be sanitizing those at the end of every day as well.
Any more questions for Richie before we pass on to Hannah? No. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys. If you have any other questions or anything, feel free to pass them through Coach, and I'm more than happy to safe travels in the next few weeks, ladies, and we're excited to get you back here.
Thanks, Richie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will pass you on to Hannah now. And Hannah's going to talk like a little bit more specifically about what we'll be doing as a team. Obviously, I've touched on the fact that we'll be doing those small group workouts initially. But Hannah, do you want to just talk a little bit about, you know, what it'll look like daily for the girls, please?
Sure. So Richie touched based on mostly everything. As far as the screening goes on ATS, they'll sign in, fill out that questionnaire just to make sure that they're not even stepping into the building if they do have any symptoms. As soon as they come into the building, we will take their temperature and make sure that they go through a 20-second hand washing protocol and then enter through the athletic training room. We also are making sure that we are scheduling appointments within the athletic training room so that there is not too many people in here. We want to make sure that we can maintain the social distancing in here as well. So just making sure that we control the flow of traffic going through one door and then exiting the other so that there's no cross-contamination, like Richie said. As far as practices, I will be setting up the waters, and you all will be getting a specific water jug for the athletes will be, and only I will be the one that will be able to refill the water jugs. I will also have a hand sanitizer bottle above the cooler so that I make sure that I'm sanitizing my hands before touching any of your children's water bottles and refilling them. Everyone will also get their own towel, making sure we're not sharing towels. Let's see. I know someone mentioned, what do we do about disinfecting basketballs as well? We could use that fogger on the basketballs. So the certain group of basketballs we were used with this certain position group. And then after they're done with the use, we can immediately fog them, wipe them off, clean them off, so that make sure that the balls are safe as well. I'm trying to think of anything else within practice.
And I think one thing that we will be doing, which will also kind of links in with your stuff, is we're not going to be using our locker room initially.
Right.
So when the girls come in, they'll have a chair which will be assigned to them in the gym, and they can leave their belongings on the chair at the side of the court.
Yes.
Basically to avoid them from congregating in the locker room, because as you all know, your girls are all very chatty and they love to sit and chit chat with each other. So we still want them to communicate, but we don't want them all just sitting in one big group, right away. So this basically gives them their own space on the court, which they can leave their belongings. And then our managers at the end of practice, they'll leave their practice gear in their laundry bag. And our managers will pick those up and wash all their gear every day for them as they do, and put it back out for them the next time they come in for practice. So they'll pick it up on their chair. We'll have 15 chairs around the court, and all their practice gear, etc., will be on those chairs. And we probably won't use the locker room until we start getting closer to season. And we'll try and avoid that as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. As far as equipment goes as well, like for our warm-ups, we'll use bands. So we typically, sometimes the girls will just throw them all in a big pile and then everyone picks one. This time we'll make sure they're very clearly marked so that we know whose is who, and every athlete is responsible for their own things, making sure that they hold on to them so it doesn't get mixed up with anybody else's stuff. I'm trying to think of anything else for practice. Again, we'll be controlling the flow of people coming through the athletic training room as well, and disinfecting any of the modalities that they use, making sure that that stuff is sanitized, and we're good with that as well. So does anyone else have any questions for me?
Will the hand sanitizers be available for the girls, or do they have to get their own, please?
They're more than welcome to use them. We encourage them to use them. So we're ordering a lot of hand sanitizer, a lot of gloves, a lot of masks. So we're hoping to be able to provide that. Obviously, it's good for all of them to have their own as well. But in the athletic training room and in the gym, we hope to be able to provide that for all of our athletes.
Yeah, and we actually, in our office area, we have 5 huge, big hand sanitizing tubs in here, which we're going to give our managers a little bit more responsibility to help out, making sure things are, cleaned around here, but also that those are available for the players. And then we bought a bunch of extra cloth masks. So our athletic director bought masks for all of the athletes, which some of the girls that are here have already. But we bought some extras. So we have at least 2 or 3 extras for each player that are in our storage cupboard. So if they forget their mask, which has already happened with a couple, we make sure we give them a mask to put on. So they're not allowed to come in here if they don't have a mask in the building. If they're walking here outside and we don't see them, we can't get on them. But when they get close to us, we know we're on them pretty hard about keeping their masks on. So we have extras here for both of those things. Any other questions about practice? I don't know if some of you have heard, there's been a lot of, you know, even in the NBA, if you've been watching the NBA bubble games, things are just different with this. You know, you don't go and shake hands with the opposing coaches. You don't shake hands with the officials.
Yes.
You know, so there's going to be some changes that the girls will have to get used to in regards to that. The biggest thing for me is, and I think this is going to be something I talk with the girls about when we have our first meeting, is I do not want this to be where we have no relationships. You know, I think that's important. Like, we got to make sure they understand that they can still come and talk to us. Like, I mean, even today, I had 2 girls in the office, but they were sat with their masks on at the other end of the office from me, and we had a conversation like we normally would, but we all had masks on. And that can still happen, but we just, you know, we got to make sure that we're preaching about the masks constantly, and trying to keep them, you know, healthy as much as we can. But we do want them to understand that, you know, our staff, Hannah particularly, is still there for them, and that they should still reach out if they need something, and communicate with us as normal, albeit with a mask on, which is slightly different. So. Any other questions? Stephanie, you mentioned the classroom situation. I did want to touch on study hall. Obviously, we have mandatory study hall for all the players. And this year, in talking with the Academic Success Center, they have actually recommended that the athletes are separated from the general student body in order to try and keep the athletes as healthy as possible. What they want to do is virtual study hall for the athletes. It will not be for everybody, because some of our athletes need that in-person contact. And that's a discussion that I'm going to have with the girls when they come back. If they require in-person study hall contact, then it will be with a staff member, not a, you know, an upperclassman tutor. I'll be with a staff member from the ACS so that we can ensure social distancing if they require that tutoring. But everybody else that's doing virtual study hall will still have to sign in. It will be an ACS tutor or staff member that monitors that. They'll have to switch their video on, and they'll have to do their normal hours for study hall, like we're doing right now, basically, but they'll have to study and show that they're actually working virtually. And that will be all through the fall semester until we kind of reevaluate things during the Christmas break. I did also want to touch on, obviously, the workout groups. We've kind of looked at that. Go back to the games. I think, Reema, you were asking, and I don't know if Teresa meant this as well. Maybe there have been situations where, you know, there's been hypotheticals. What if we go and play a game at Sam Houston State, and then the next day one of their players tests positive? You know, there's a lot of what ifs right now, and you know, Hannah and Richie, I can tell you that those two, I don't know when they sleep at the moment because they've got a lot of responsibility on them and they're running around after pretty much every team on campus. But you know, they're getting information every day on how this works. But I really do feel confident that, you know, they are doing everything they can to make sure that we try and keep our players safe. Now, it's going to be a lot on the girls as well to make sure they're social distancing and they're changing some of their habits that they had from this past year and coming in, because they're not going to be able to socialize the way that they're used to, and they're going to just have to get used to that. I mean, I've already talked to the ones that are here that about, you know, your teammates or your social group right now, because you extend it by one person, you're extending the risk even by one person. And so, you know, we do want to try and just harp on that we want them around their teammates. They should be around their teammates. But, you know, that has to be your social grouping until we learn more about this, because we don't want any more risk. And obviously, the more they go outside the team, that increases the risk for everybody. So we really want to kind of put it on them to be responsible. And I'm not really concerned about that, because I do think as a group we get that message, but it is something we will be telling them constantly when they get here.
Hey, Coach Donna, I do have another question that
Sure.
I wanted to ask you. When you talked about, you know, the hypothetical situation of maybe another player or something from another school actually coming down with COVID,
Right.
will there be regular updates, I guess, within the conference or the teams that are on your schedule, so that you guys know ahead of time
Yes.
if there is any players that test positive for it?
Yes. So like we would know, like for example, our first game is at Grand Canyon. And so if they're like, we're already talking to all these teams regularly, because obviously a lot of us are communicating what we're being told from our conferences. But let's just say, for example, Grand Canyon had a player test positive 3 days before we play them. They go through their protocol, etc. If they've quarantined and tested all their other players, and they've quarantined the people necessary, and the rest of their team are negative and they play, so be it. If we come back and we find out that one of their players is positive the next day, then there is a procedure to go through if that happens. But that's already changed. Like I had a conversation last week with our AD about it, and this week I'm hearing something different because of the NCAA changes. So, you know, I think without doubt, we would obviously err on the side of caution. And Hannah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you know, we would obviously want to make sure that we were over testing rather than, you know, just taking chances. So if it was felt like we should test because we heard something from another program, then we would do that rather than take the risk and say, no, we're fine. You know, no one has any symptoms, because, you know, the schools are communicating very well with each other right now. And that's something that as a conference, I know that on our conference call last week, we have a head coaches text group now with all of our head coaches in the conference, and we're all kind of doing a good job of updating each other where we're at. So yeah, Hannah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think we would test in that situation if we heard that.
Yeah, I think if we ever found out that one of our girls or possibly our whole team was exposed to even one person, then we would all get tested again.
Anything else on anything COVID related? There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I don't think Richie mentioned this, but you may have seen online that the school is, and Hannah, you're probably better versed in this than me. The school is implementing a product through the ear ducts that they're putting into a lot of the buildings on campus, which I guess dissolves the particles of the virus when it's airborne. So this is going into multiple buildings across campus. Am I right with that, Hannah?
Honestly, I haven't heard that yet, but
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's on the main HBU website.
Okay.
So far, I know that they've already put it into some classrooms in the library already. They're putting it into dining area, etc. And the information is on there. So if you want to, you can look at the hbu.edu website. The information is up there for that as well. But obviously, Richie kind of touched on the Fogger. They also have plugins for the classroom situation as well. So they have wall plugins that I guess do the same thing as what comes through the ear ducts for the classrooms as well. So they're doing everything they can on that side of things to take care of it. And, you know, we're going to do everything we can to try and keep the girls distanced, which is going to be very hard from each other, but, you know, and give them as normal an experience as we can. And that's why I want them to feel like they can come in my office and talk as they do normally. They can go and see Hannah, obviously, if they make sure that they're allowed in the training room at that time. But, you know, they can text and call us to set that up with her if need be. But, you know, I do want them to feel like we're still there for them. You know, I don't want them thinking that just because we're hidden behind masks that they can't come talk to us about things. So, we're going to stress that in our team meeting that we have. And when we do have our team meeting, it is going to be spaced out, obviously, rather than meeting in the locker room or Glasscock lobby like we normally would. We're going to do it in the gym so that they're spaced out on seating. And we'll do that there. So yeah, a lot of different changes this year, but our goal is to make sure that the biggest thing is that we try and keep every single one of them healthy. And that's our goal. And if we don't play some basketball games, then we don't play some basketball games, but keeping them healthy is much more important. And we know that we are intending to play the games, and other teams are, but like I said, things may change, and I just keep telling myself day by day at the moment, and in terms of the information that we get, because this thing changes every week, and we're going to do what's best for the players ultimately.
But do we have any plan about the conference, schedule or something that you are looking into now, even though it might change next week? And
right.
That, and I'm thinking about December and around there.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is obviously now most schools, including ourselves, after Thanksgiving, the students will not be on campus. The only people that will be on campus after Thanksgiving will be our teams. And so that will obviously limit, the interaction with the regular student body hugely. So there'll be less people, like pretty much no one else on campus from Thanksgiving break right through till when the schools go back at the end of January. So that alone will help us, hopefully. Because they're not going to have that interaction with anyone, outside of the team as much. But there are talks with different conferences. I have heard some good suggestions, and then I've heard some pretty crazy suggestions. Some of the conferences now, the bigger conferences, are talking about bubbles because they're seeing the model with the NBA and the WNBA working. And so they're looking into whether or not the bubble is the best option. I personally would love that if that was, a possibility, but we don't know. So there are conversations going ahead with us having those 16 games. Quite a few of them are played in that break when there's no kids on campus. So the hope is that we can play those safely, and go into games, like Richie said, because they'll be tested 72 hours before competition. Going into games confident that our team and the team that we're playing against are healthy. So, and with us in conference not having to fly anywhere, we're definitely limiting our risk there. So I think there's ongoing conversations, and it's a good question, Helga, but I personally hope that they may come up with something like that, but I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you. There is a question from Pam. You can see it on the chat.
What is the question? Okay. So yeah, they'll be doing their laundry as normal. So they'll use the laundry facilities as normal. I haven't heard anything to the contrary of that, but they'll be responsible for that. Obviously, we'll do all of their practice gear, etc., that they have here, but their personal belongings, they will have to do that themselves. Yes, and I think that so far what they said is, again, everybody has to be masked up. They'll put their laundry on as normal and come back and get that. So yeah. Any other questions? I will, once Richie sends me the updated protocol, etc., I'll send that out. I know that's why we wanted to wait till this week to have this conversation with y'all, because things have changed so much, and we felt like we didn't want to have to do this 20 times. but I thought it was important that we do it before the girls start moving back on campus en masse. And we have, and we will continue to make sure that as a staff, we're going to be on the girls about taking personal responsibility with the mask, etc. And, you know, we will also probably connect you guys if we have a problem with that. But as I say, I don't think that we will. I can tell you that we've had to tell other athletes to put their masks on. And I think it's just I mean, at that age, you think you're invincible, and, you know, you're around your friends, and, you know, you think nothing's going to happen to you. So we are, everybody, our staff, Hannah's staff, have all been really good about being on them and getting their masks on. But we need the athletes to take personal responsibility as well. And I think, you know, like I say, we've got some girls in our team that I think will help us do that, with other teams too. So I'm looking forward to getting them all back on campus. And as always, if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me. Most of you have Hannah's number as well, if there's anything medically related that you need to ask. And then obviously I'll make sure I send on what we get from Richie to you as well. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much. And we will be in touch once we get the latest update, and just please reach out if you have anything for me, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Don.
very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Hey, Julia's mom. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Yes.